What do you do when the beast has crashed your wedding, taken your bride-to-be, and left? Well, naturally, you meet up with an old man, climb a mountain, dodge some rocks, reach into some lava, and retrieve the glaive.
For me, it was Tuesday.
Welcome to another episode of For Me, It Was Tuesday. I am your host, GQ. Do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button.
Only the king and his Lord Marshal carry this
Like
key.
the video, this one and the other ones that I've done. Leave some comments on this video and of course the other ones that I've done. Also check us out on culturejunkies.net. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, not to mention Twitch and Discord. So we are everywhere. Today we're going to be looking at an old classic. Released in 1983 by Columbia Pictures, directed by Peter Yates. We're going to be looking at Krull. Krull, honestly, is one of my favorite films. It stars Ken Marshall, Lizette Anthony, Freddie Jones, Bernard Bresslaw, a very young Liam Neeson, and a very young Robbie Coltrane. The film itself is kind of a mixture of sci-fi, fantasy, high adventure. It's really hard to kind of, I guess, place this movie in one particular category because it checks off boxes for a lot of different things. I've often joked with my friends calling it the blueprint for an RPG movie because essentially our hero, Colwyn, played by Ken Marshall, starts off essentially in need of a band of men to help him on his quest. He meets the first person, Ynir, played by Freddie Jones, and he's essentially kind of a mixture of a healer, an old sage type character, kind of a guide, and he's known as the Old One, which is kind of messed up, but that's what they call him. So if you look at that type of situation and you've got the Old One guiding him, so it's like, okay, so you got your guide character and slash medic. So then they ended up meeting your Ergo, the Magnificent, who is kind of like a magician, a shapeshifter. So they meet him. Then they come across just an entire horde of bandits, which young Liam Neeson is part of that, as well as young Robbie Coltrane. So it's like as they go through this quest, they just keep picking up different characters, and it's very much like an RPG in that regard, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. The story itself is very straightforward. It's essentially the Beast, who is the bad guy, and his army of slayers have come to the planet Krull to essentially steal Colwyn's bride-to-be for whatever reason. I mean, it's like, dude, you have all this power. You've come to this particular planet to steal this particular girl is really far-fetched, but whatever. It's the standard damsel in distress type of thing. But what I liked about this particular film is I think it's just the camaraderie of the different characters, just the different way that some of the characters come together and how they meet. Essentially, the head bandit, that's part of Liam Neeson is part of his squad actually, follows Colwyn based on just the fact that it's like, okay, you claim to be a king, and it's almost kind of like a prove it type of thing. It's like, you know, a lot of people have claimed to be kings or whatever, and just to try to get out of trouble. And it's just like, no, well, he's actually a king. It's then he proves it by unlocking the manacles, or essentially the handcuffs that one of the guys, you know, comes up and gets his handcuffs unlocked. And that's kind of the proof. It's kind of like, well, hey, only the king and his Lord Marshal have the key for these cuffs. How is it that you have this key? So it's just little small nuances like that. It's just different character development. That's one thing I can definitely say about this film. The character development is really, really well handled. Now, granted, all the bandits do not get character development. They're more or less cannon fodder and side characters. But even like Ynir, you get little hints about him, and he's kind of dropping hints that the widow of the web is somebody that he knows and all that sort of thing. And in today's style of filmmaking, that would have just been hints at that, and they would have just left it alone. They wouldn't have had any kind of resolution to that. But what I liked about this film is we actually get a scene with Ynir, and it's also a scene necessary to the plot. It's not just a little side thing they threw in there and it's like, hey, watch this whole long section. It's literally he's going to the widow of the web for a reason, And then he has the resolution with the Widow of the Web, who essentially we find out was his ex. And they actually let the scene play out, and they gave us great backstory and character development for Ynire's character as well as her character in a fully, fleshed out scene. And it was cool, and I enjoyed that. Some people might say, oh, well, that slows the movie down, get back to the action. I think that's why this movie works. It has a really good balance of action and then a good balance of, okay, well, there's other things that are going on as well as these action sequences. So we got, different stories that we're telling. So I did enjoy that. The other highlight of the film for me is, of course, the glaive, the essentially magical throwing star that Colwyn has to retrieve. And hilariously, the video game Krull, especially the arcade version, has I think it starts off, as a matter of fact, with a sequence where you're trying to climb up a mountain and retrieve 5 little pieces of the glaive. The glaive, of course, itself is just one, big star. But there's rocks that are basically coming off the top of the mountain. And it's funny to see how video games get their inspiration from the films that they're, supposed to be trying to portray. Because that rock sequence is literally one scene in this film. It's like some rocks are coming down the mountain while he's trying to climb. And they turned that into an entire stage in the video game. So I thought that was actually really hilarious. As they go along, I'm not going to, walk you through the entire movie because honestly, I think this is a movie that everybody should see. Of course, it came out in 1983. So we're looking at a film that is close to 40 years old at this point. So I'm sure a lot of the younger audience have never even seen it or even heard of it. But I truly, truly enjoyed this film. And one of the standout characters for me was played by Bernard Bresslaw. He's a character called Krull. He's a Cyclops. Bernard Bresslaw was an actor who was 6'7", so he, even with Liam Neeson on set, who I believe was about 6'3", 6'4", Bernard Bresslaw towers over him, and he was essentially, the biggest character in the entire cast. And I enjoyed his sequences because the Cyclops, while he was extremely powerful, was like a really just chill kind of guy. And he kind of, once Ynire died, he kind of stepped in as the guy that knows stuff, essentially. And when they find out that they have to get from where they are in one location to the next location where the Black Fortress, which is the Beast's headquarters, is going to appear, because his headquarters essentially teleports around the planet as, from day to day. It never stays in the same place twice. So he knows that, hey, fire males, which essentially are magical horses in this film, played, of course, by Clydesdales, because again, if you need big, huge, interesting horses, you always go to Clydesdales. And they get some Clydesdales, and these horses run so fast that they have flames under their feet, and they can also fly. So it's fantasy. So I mean, it's all sorts of fun in this particular film. I definitely enjoyed it. I would highly recommend you can get Krull if you can go find it. This is the version that I picked up at Menards of all places. So the slipcover is kind of a throwback 80s VHS kind of thing, but they've got this version. Now here's the issue. The only issue I have with the Blu-ray, it's super bare bones. It is literally the movie. That's it. No chapter selection, no extras, no trailer, no nothing. It literally, when you put the disc in, you get your little, quick playback movie with the music playing, but the only command that you have on there is play movie. That's it. It's a naked DVD, Blu-ray, excuse me. So I really wish, and I hope, again, because the problem with this film is I think it had an initial budget of like 17, 18 million at the time, and they ended up ballooning way past budget, and I think it ended up being about 30 million to make the movie. And in the US domestic market, I think it only made 14 million. So, I mean, it obviously bombed at the box office. So it's not one of those films that gets a lot of love when it comes to doing remasters and updates and all that other sort of thing. But I would love for them to go back, and if they ever do a 4K version of this, I want them to do a Criterion style where they get all the extras, everything that they can find, and put it on that Blu-ray. So hopefully, who knows, it might happen, because this film, for a lot, has become a cult classic. So we will see. I mean, there's a possibility there. Who knows? And you never know. But I'm going to leave you guys with these final words. For some of you out there, because I can't even really say many, because obviously this film didn't do that well in the theaters, but for some of you out there, I heard that there was going to be a fantasy movie that was kind of like a Star Wars meets Excalibur, at least according to Variety magazine on the back of here. Might have been skeptical. You're like, well, you know what? Return of the Jedi just came out. What's going to top that? And in reality, Krull doesn't top Return of the Jedi. Let's just be real. But at the same time, it's a lot of fun. And if I ever find a place to get a hold of a accurate prop replica of the glaive, I'm going to get one. Just to let y'all know, because, you know, that'll be one of my unboxings, which of course are done every Friday. So, that's one of the weird things about Krull. It's just one of those cult movies that kind of flew under the radar. But for me,
It was Tuesday.
I'll see you guys next time. Hey, this is GQ. I just want to give a special shout out to DeMarcus Smith, our Culture Junkies level patron. If you want to get a shout out in the videos from yours truly, just check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/culturejunkies. There's 3 different tiers to choose from. And, you know, if you guys' support is definitely much appreciated. If you're enjoying our content, please consider going to our Patreon and becoming a supporter. There are different tiers to select from, and we thank you for your support.
Culture Junkies!